going to be one of those mornings.
Good morning. It's great to see you today. Welcome to First Unitarian Church. Welcome to those who are joining us online. We're really glad that you're here. And a very special welcome to our visitors and guests. We couldn't be more happy to see you today, and we hope you'll stay after worship for coffee, get to know us, and let us introduce ourselves to you. Welcome. Just a few announcements before we get started. First, we are in the middle of our annual pledge campaign. For those of you who have already turned in your pledge cards, thank you so much. For those who haven't, now is a great time, well, not right now, but today would be great, or as soon as you can. It helps us in the budgeting process, helps us get that underway, helps the staff sleep better at night. So if you have any questions about that or you need some information, you can talk to Stephanie in the main office and she can help you out. Tomorrow evening, we continue our series on church safety with countering active threats. We have our expert from the FBI who's coming back to just teach us how to recognize unsafe situations here in church or really in any public situation. So it's a good training for our hospitality, our greeters, and our welcome table folks, but really for anybody who goes out in public, this is a good training to have. So we encourage you to come tomorrow night. It starts at 7. It'll also be on Zoom, but it will not be recorded. So make sure that you make time tomorrow night for this training. In adult religious education, a couple of opportunities coming up. First of all, we are excited to offer to you an online biblical literacy class. I'm not teaching it, but I'm making it available to you. It is through the UU Church of Dallas, Texas. It's an 11-week course offered half in the spring and half in the fall, and it starts this Wednesday night at 6 o'clock local time. So if you're interested in that, shoot me an email and I will make the connection for you. And then starting on the 26th, we will have another round of our new member class taught by Sandy Green and Kristen Quinn. This is for folks who are new to our church, you're curious about becoming a member, or you just want to learn more about what Unitarian Universalism is all about. We encourage you to sign up for this class. There's a link in the Torch email or on our website, or again, just shoot me an email and I'll make it happen for you. And in religious education for younger folks, our coming of age class is going back to Boston. So they're raising money and they are selling brownies. Now listen, I had one of these brownies this morning. I don't know what your expectation of middle school made brownies is, but these are pretty good. And there's, oh, did Brent? See, you should have left it like middle school. Okay, it appears they had some adult help, but there are nut-free, there are gluten-free, there are vegan, there are all kinds. So support our coming-of-age students by buying a brownie after service. And as I announced last week, immediately after this service today, I invite any of you who would like to support our efforts with Pink Haven, helping trans and trans families relocate. If you've got a spare room or a space that you can share with a family, meet me in room 219 after the service. Get your coffee and your brownie and go right up those stairs, and I'll meet you there to talk about how we can help these friends in this time. Now, we will settle into our work this morning with these chalice lighting words by Cole Arthur Riley. Rest is not the reward of our liberation, nor something we lay a hold of once we are free. It is the path that delivers us there. Our opening hymn this morning is number 1009, and David is going to lead us.
So, part one. If you want to stand up, if you're willing and able, please do.
I'm happy to welcome up today's lay minister, Brandon Checketts, who will speak on February's lay ministry theme of interdependence.
Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
A year ago, I considered beginning the search for a single-family home. Like many millennials, this kind of home ownership felt out of reach for most of my adult life. But I really wanted to create something of the home, yard, and garden experience for my son that had meant so much to me when I was his age. I had budgeted and saved for 8 years and wondered if I could finally pull it off. Thankfully, Ogden is relatively affordable, or should I say less unaffordable, than most of the Wasatch Front. Still, the numbers made me nervous. I decided I'd only feel comfortable buying a house if I could house hack, turning the basement into a separate apartment. So I spent the next several months looking. If any of you have tried to find a house you love, and with a fully loaded, functional basement apartment, one with a separate entrance, separate laundry, separate kitchen, and enough driveway parking space, you know, it's not easy. I looked at well over 20 properties and am honestly surprised my realtor didn't fire me. Finally, I found the one. The price was right and it checked all the basic infrastructural boxes, only it needed some TLC. No problem, I thought. I've watched HGTV and this will be fun. And once it's all done, it's going to be amazing. Especially with the rental income supplementing my mortgage. I'll have won the real estate game. So my friends and I came over the day of closing with their hammers and pry bars, and we went to town, ripping out all the floors, doors, trim, vanities, toilets, and closet shelves. We largely gutted it, and it only took 1 weekend. By the way, I did recycle or rehome as much as I could, just in case I was about to lose some of you there. So after that weekend, we celebrated what felt like being halfway done. Now we just needed to rebuild it. Swing by Lowe's, grab some new flooring, paint, trim, and vanities, and throw it all in. We'll have it put together in no time. Well, I quickly realized HGTV is a scam, and that rebuilding a largely gutted house takes more than a few weekends. Nobody warned me about corroded pipes, decades worth of mold, outdated electrical issues, leaky shower pans, nothing being square or level, and how every problem leads to 5 other problems, which then compound into 25 problems. Needless to say, the project quickly became way bigger than my capacity or set of abilities, and I had to lean on a lot of people, paid and unpaid, to help. But I did it. After 6 months, it was move-in ready. The upstairs was ready for my son, my boyfriend, and me, and the basement apartment was ready for a tenant. I felt proud. Everything had been done the right way, and it looked great. The house represented so much more than the materials. It was my savings, my hard work, and the start of a new chapter for my family. To use Reverend J's words from a previous sermon a few weeks ago, it felt precious. When it was time to find a tenant, I went into landlord mode. I had the space professionally photographed and listed it everywhere, hoping to rent it for top dollar. I was excited to win the game as a house hacker. But as I showed it to interested candidates, I began to feel an ick. Something about commodifying half my home, a space that had become quite meaningful to me, just didn't sit right. This was the space I'd continue raising my son, sharing walls, floors, ceilings, even air circulation with. So I took down the listing and posted on social media, asking if anyone was interested in renting at a below market rate. I wasn't looking for just any tenant. I wanted someone we could share a connection with, someone who'd appreciate the space and feel like part of our lives. A friend saw my post and connected me with Elizabeth, who told me about a woman named Maria. Maria is raising 2 daughters while working multiple jobs. Maria had been living with Elizabeth's family for years, but they were moving to the East Coast and worried about Maria finding housing in an unaffordable market. When I met Maria and her daughters, I was instantly moved by their joy and enthusiasm for the space I had worked so hard on. I knew it was right, and that this was the universe's response to my call for a more meaningful relationship with someone to share my home with. Maria asked if she could help out around the house in exchange for reduced rent, maybe yard work, cleaning, dog walking, childcare, etc. Initially, I wasn't too sure, but something in me felt good about it, and I'm getting better at trusting that intuition. It's been a few months since Maria and her daughters moved in, and I couldn't feel more grateful. Our relationship feels far more interdependent than transactional. Maria's rent contributes meaningfully, and the help she gives around the house, especially during my 60-hour work weeks, is invaluable. But beyond the practical, there's an exchange of trust, respect, and genuine care that feels so much richer than the landlord-tenant relationship I originally imagined. In a world that so often prioritizes individualism and commodification, this relationship has reminded me how much more meaningful life feels when we find creative ways to lean on each other. I'm glad to be part of a faith community that reminds me that interdependence is something we can live out every day in our communities and relationships. I'm grateful I trusted that initial feeling of unease when I started looking for someone to share my home with and chose to embrace interdependence instead. I believe opportunities for these kinds of connections are all around us as long as we stay open to them. Thank you.
A body at rest tends to stay at rest. This is a fundamental law of the universe. An object will not change its state of motion until a force acts upon it. That sounds so nice, doesn't it? Because there are forces acting upon us all day, every day. It's hard to imagine a single day without the forces. Forces we take for granted, like gravity stitching us to the earth, and time pulling us forward moment by inevitable moment. The forces other people press upon us, their incessant demands, needs, requests, requirements. We feel pressed, pulled, drawn, repelled, forced by what we must do and must not do. We bear the weight of our responsibilities. We carry each other's burdens. We may even lift one another's spirits. As the world spins faster and faster, as the information age produces exponentially more content, we struggle to keep up. We find ourselves compelled to take action. And the pressure of life is often too much to manage. It is no surprise to me that one of the most popular passages from the Hebrew Scriptures speaks of being led through green pastures beside still waters, the restoration of the soul. With all this pressure and force, what we long for is rest. The softness of summer grass, the babbling of water, the warmth of the sun. But the restorative rest of the still waters and green pastures is too rich a luxury to ask for. All I'm asking for is a moment to stop right where I am. In these unusually anxious times when so much is at stake, even the rest we take for ourselves is often disturbed. These words by the writer Cole Arthur Riley describe it well. The powerful convince us that there is not enough, while their pockets spill over out in the open. They distract us from this by dangling opportunity in the opposite direction. They appear as rescuers, demanding ceaseless labor from us, but presenting it as a gift. We are expected to feel deeply lucky and even indebted to a society that allows us to work, even if that work cannot satisfy our most basic needs. And it is the specter of scarcity that withholds the rest we have been made for. The paradox being that what feels like so much risk is actually the means of restoration. We sleep and we regenerate. Our cells begin a sacred rhythm of repair and release. And when we wake, we are more healed, more whole, less inflamed, more aware. When it feels like stopping to rest would be too risky, too vulnerable, that's when we most need to rest. More than that, we need to create spaces for ourselves and each other where it's okay to rest. We need restorative sleep, but we need other kinds of rest too. We need space to dream, space to play, space to move slowly, space to let our minds drift and wander. This space, this church, this chapel is many things to us, but right now during our meditation, let us make it a place to rest. Imagine a place that for you is a place of rest. Perhaps you imagine green pastures and still waters. Perhaps you imagine a big, soft bed full of lofty cushions. Maybe for you, it's a yoga mat during Shavasana. Or maybe it's a space to read a delicious book, or sit quietly and sip tea, or do a craft. Maybe it's just 1 minute to sit still and have the experience of doing absolutely nothing. I invite you to this place now. Let's be still and rest together for a few moments. Gently now return to this room. Be among us once again. After even just a moment of rest, you may have enough quiet to hear what it is you really need right now. Let that message settle into you so you can find it again during a longer rest. As you go through the remainder of this week, may this moment of rest be a touchstone for you. And may you have green pastures and still waters wherever you are. Amen.
As Reverend Monica mentioned, we are early into our pledge drive. Yay! Our pledge drive is so important because it is how we fund pretty much everything that happens at this church. And we are fully supported by our members and friends. And this year we have a ambitious pledge goal that we need to meet. And I'm happy to say that even just a couple weeks in, we're off to a great start. And we want to reach that goal. So the sooner you can get your pledge cards in, the better. It really does help us with our budgeting process, and it helps our staff to know whether they need to update their resumes or not. So if you can get in those pledge cards, you should have received one in the mail if you've pledged before. We also have ones. We are asking if you're able to up your pledge, if you're able, because we are trying to reach that goal. And if you've never pledged before, consider pledging this year, because all the cool kids are doing it. Including these cool kids, Jim and Jessica French, who are going to come up and speak a little bit about why they give.
Hi, I'm Jim French, and together with Jessica, we form a single pledging unit.
And I'm Jessica French, and we're here to share with you why we pledge to First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City. And I want to start by assuring you it's not payment for the privilege of serving as the president of your board of trustees.
Now, we could come to church the occasional Sunday and just put $1 in the plate and a pittance in the coffee basket. Coffee is the best BTW.
We could join a small group ministry, sing in the choir, take religious education classes for absolutely free. But instead, we make our biggest single charitable contribution each year to this church.
And we pledge and contribute our time, our thoughts, and talents for one simple reason.
We care about this place, about you, our friends, fellow seekers, and meaning makers. And we've discovered through the years that the greater our commitment, the deeper our connections are with all of you, and the more we feel we belong. This church feels like a family, and we care deeply that it remains a place of ethical and spiritual exploration for generations to come. First Church, meaning you, the community that brings this church to life, nourishes us in a way that nothing else does.
And it really does. We want First Church to thrive, that it might continue to fill people up today and create the collective power we need to build a happy, caring world for future generations.
Please join us in pledging as generously as you can to support the success of this beautiful community. There's a pledge table right outside in Elliott Hall where you can drop your pledge card off.
We upped our pledge this year, and if you can, up yours.
I think there may have been a double entendre there. I don't know. I'm too innocent. I wouldn't know. Oh, we give thanks, for this precious day, for all gathered here, and those far away, for this time we share, with love and precious day. The offering for the work of the church will now be gratefully received, and as the baskets go around, please also take this time to greet one another as well. I was going to write this week about the importance of rest. I've been thinking about this topic for quite a while, and I have a lot to say about it. I planned for it for weeks, and actually I've had this date in mind for months, and then on Monday night, I was hit with the worst flu that I've had in years. I spent Tuesday through Friday mostly horizontal. So I decided, I didn't really decide. I didn't really have a choice. But, I did. I decided that instead of rushing and pushing myself beyond my physical and mental limits, I would honor the topic of rest by giving my body the rest that it needed. And instead of writing a new sermon about rest for this week, I went through the archives and I pulled out an older COVID-era sermon that felt relevant to this moment. This week, I gave myself the rest that I needed. Next week, I will give the topic of rest its due. So if you saw the topic in your email and were like, rest, I got to go to that one, come back next week. It'll happen. So there are a few words and phrases that I've become sick of hearing over the past decade or so. One of them is unprecedented. As in, these are unprecedented times. We should all know by now, no, they're not. There is nothing unprecedented about dealing with a plague, or war, or factionalism, or inept, power-hungry leaders, or the strange waning days of a would-be empire. Oh, that was dark. We may not have experienced these things, or perhaps we just are realizing we're experiencing them, but in the history of the world, they are, in fact, very precedented. A phrase during the pandemic I couldn't help rolling my eyes at as well was new normal. The way I heard this phrase, it attempted to rush through the uncomfortable parts of change and even deny that constant change is inevitable. To me, normal implies a sort of stasis. To say we've arrived at a new normal seems to say, don't worry, things may be different than they were, but now we've stopped changing again, thank goodness. We don't have to worry about changing anymore. While some dramatic changes do take their toll, rushing to a false sense of stasis dishonors the change, the loss, and the opportunity for growth. But these days, no word or phrase evokes nails on a chalkboard reactions for me quite like the word uncertain. And it's true, the phrase, "these uncertain times," has long been a cliche of copywriters and fundraisers and spiritual directors and spiritual leaders, but in the past 5 years, it's been thrown around everywhere. And I get it. Because when the pandemic hit, we were briefly faced with the hubris of our own certainty. We realized that everything is uncertain, so we decided to tell the world as if this were some great discovery we had made. Everything is uncertain. Control is an illusion. No one has ever realized this before. But then the problem is we forgot again, like we always forget. We rush to forget that we live in uncertainty more fervently than we rush to find the new normal. And I definitely have done this. In lockdown during the pandemic, I read everything I could about the new virus. And what but young children reminds us of uncertainty? As the parent of a young child. But yes, when the pandemic hit, I read everything I could about the new virus, trying to predict when we might be out of it. The New York Times had a vaccine tracker. Does anybody remember this? And I would check this multiple times a day, hoping to predict when science might save us from the uncertainty. We despise the discomfort of unknowing. We want to get to stasis, that normal, be it old or new. We want to get back to assured pleasure. We want to hit the button and know we are going to get that treat. That's why we spend so much energy trying to predict the future, and we always have. And I guess we've gotten better at it in some ways. At least we tell ourselves we have. For instance, modern science has helped us predict the weather, sometimes. And it's at least better than it used to be. And we have statistics and mathematics, ultimate truth. But like any human-created system of belief, even mathematics can lull us into a false sense of security. In 2016, I was living in Cambridge, Massachusetts, surrounded by Harvard and MIT and people who were quietly, or not so quietly, certain that they were smarter than everyone else in the world. Now, this experience might have been different for you here in Salt Lake City, and I'd love to hear about that, but in Cambridge, as in much of the Northeast, those who were liberal, and especially white liberals, thought the 2016 election was no cause for concern. In fact, it was entertainment. You remember that? Putting it in the entertainment section. That was great. And I did not share this certainty. I was obsessively worried about the passion that this candidate rising up on the right seemed to have. And I went back and forth between doomsaying at my friends like a modern Cassandra and cuddling my dog and hoping that my friends were right and I was just being paranoid. After all, as my friends kept pointing me to, there was Nate Silver, the oracle at Delphi. And if you aren't familiar with Nate Silver, he is a statistician who founded the website 538. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. So 538 is a website that was touted as the most science-y, most objectively mathematical presidential election oracle of all time. And my friends would look at its front page every day and sigh with relief, as it would consistently show that Hillary Clinton, the candidate that we were voting for, had an 80% probability of winning the election based on the polls. And sometimes the number would go even higher. I think I saw it at 90% once. There was even a little graph showing this blue line connected to the Hillary head, just getting bigger and bigger and swallowing the red line that was connected to the Donald head. And many people in my circles seem to take this 80 to 90% chance as a sure thing. But that's not how statistics and probabilities work. I don't even think that's how the oracle at Delphi worked. So let's ignore the flaws that seem so obvious now. In hindsight and in fiction, everything is certain, so let's just pretend that 538's prediction was accurate, and at the start of the election day in 2016, Hillary Clinton had an 80% chance of winning. So if that's true, if on election morning Hillary Clinton had an 80% chance of winning, that means if you took a sample of 5 random potential futures, 5 timelines or universes or whatever multiverse metaphor that is helpful for you here, she would have won in 4 of them and lost in 1. So maybe Nate Silver was right, and we just happen to be that 1. My brother is a quantum physicist, or as he likes to say, a quantum mechanic. He says that on a subatomic level, nothing is certain until it is measured, that is, observed. Before you observe the location of an electron, it does not exist in a fixed location. It instead exists only in a cloud of probability. Once you observe it, the cloud collapses into a position, and the electron then exists as we think of existence, meaning it's there. It's trippy, and I don't fully get it, but neither do the scientists who successfully manipulate quantum mechanics, so I feel okay about it. Now, they say quantum laws do not apply to things that are our size or larger, but I disagree somewhat. We live in a constant state of uncertainty. Technically, scientifically, literally, anything can happen. And that's terrifying and wonderful. We may hone our predictions using finer and finer systems of measurement, but we still don't know what makes up 95% of the mass of the universe. There are more variables in heaven and earth than are dreamed of in our statistics. That's why there is a minuscule chance, but a chance, a real scientific chance, that I will disappear at the end of this sentence and reappear out in the vestibule. It didn't happen. But it could have happened, scientifically. Modern physicists call this the cloud of probability. Medieval mystics called it the cloud of unknowing. I'd argue that it's not scaling up to human size that messes with our experience of quantum reality, but scaling down to the size of the individual. Large-scale statistics don't work experientially on an individual level because we live in the collapsed state. Your demographic may have a 30% chance of getting some disease, for instance, but if you get it, your experience collapses the cloud of probability because you personally now have a 100% chance of having it. It's only when something truly surprises us, a pandemic or an election, that we remember that we are living in the cloud. So there's a story that I was told in a class when I was in undergrad a while ago. It was in a Taoism class, and it was told to me as a Taoist story. I looked it up. I'm not sure if it's like originally a Taoist story, but it at least seems to originate in China a long time ago. And so there was this farmer. He had 1 horse and a farm and a son. And one day his horse escaped and ran off. And everybody in the village came up to him and said, "Oh, I am so sorry for your horse. I'm so sorry for you. How are you going to farm without your horse? You must be miserable." And the farmer said, How do I know if it's a good thing or a bad thing? And then the next day, the horse came back, and not only that, he came back with a mare, a beautiful chestnut mare. And she was a little wild, but she was strong, and she would be a good farm horse. And everybody in the village said, "Wow, what luck! You must be thrilled. Now you have 2 horses, and you didn't have to go out and buy them or anything. This is amazing." And the farmer said, "How do I know if it's a good thing or a bad thing?" And then the next week, the farmer's son, a young man, was out. He took the new mare out to train her, and she threw him off. And he broke his leg. And he wouldn't be able to help around the farm for months. He was in bed, in pain, and suffering. And the village came out and said, "Oh, we are so sorry. You must be so sad. Your poor son, he's in so much pain. He's not going to be able to help around the farm. It's going to take months to heal. We're so sorry. This must be so sad. You must be beside yourself." And the farmer said, "How do I know if it's a good thing or a bad thing?" And then, the next month, a war broke out. And the emperor called all able-bodied young men to come and fight. And it was against a formidable enemy, and many of the soldiers would not return. But the farmer's son was spared because of his broken leg. And the villagers came and said, "Wow, what luck. You must be thrilled." And the farmer said, So the story of the farmer and his horse is so salient to me because the farmer is aware that he is living in the cloud. And yet, unlike us, or I guess unlike me, it does not seem to make him uncomfortable or anxious. He does not grasp to see the future. He does not even grasp at a positive outcome. Of course, this is a parable, and the farmer is an ideal, right? He's not real. I don't expect that I will ever be so unattached that I'll not cling to some desire, some pleasure. And when you bring family into it like an injured child, I mean, it's hard to imagine that I'll ever react to my child's broken leg with, "How do I know if it's a good thing or a bad thing?" Nevertheless, for me, this story has been a valuable one to hold on to over the years. I usually go back to it when something happens that I didn't want. Oh, I didn't get the job I tried for. Well, how do I know if it's a good thing or a bad thing? Maybe I would have hated it. A relationship ends. Well, how do I know if it's a good thing or a bad thing? Maybe this leaves a window open for something else. A strain in my knee exercising. How do I know it's a good thing or a bad thing? You get the idea. But I think it's also important to remember that when we do achieve desired outcomes, we don't really know how those are going to turn out either. When the farmer gets the extra horses, he takes it in stride. He can't see the future, and he doesn't know how these horses will affect him or his family. Now, this seems to go against all the modern gratitude journaling and self-care dogma, doesn't it? We're supposed to celebrate any victories, however small, because we are worth it. The unspoken part, however, is that we need to celebrate all our victorious moments when they happen, because pleasure and getting what we want are all that matters in life. And that waiting around the corner just may be that other shoe. This too can be grasping, a desperate grope for the pleasure while it lasts. So what if instead we appreciated our victories, but simultaneously acknowledged that the full picture can't be seen? That we live in the cloud of unknowing, or the cloud of probability. Perhaps then we would be able to step back from the reactive capitalist mindset that says everything is an emergency, And we must react now to every single bad thing that happens now, or else it will definitely lead to something even worse. Perhaps we could take a calmer, longer view of history and ourselves, and focus instead on maintaining and caring for our loved ones and communities. I don't know if that would be a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it's certainly worth a try. May it be so. Please rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, Spirit of Life, number 123. May all beings be well. May all beings be content. May our actions be bonded to our deepest values. May we treat others as we would be treated. May we move through each day with compassion toward ourselves, our friends, and our enemies. May each breath bring us closer to our truest selves and to those we love. Amen. my friends, I hope you will enjoy coffee hour, buy some of those brownies, bake sale. Usually I go out to coffee hour and hug people and talk to them and shake their hand, but I'm not gonna do that today. I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna go, both for me and for you. I would not wish what I had on my worst enemy. So it was wonderful to see all of you. It makes my heart lift. And next week we'll talk about rest, and hopefully I will feel all better. Thank you. Cheers.